Thank you for clicking. My name is Sam Strauss, and this is my YouTube channel. This is actually the second part of my first YouTube video. If you have yet to watch that, I would recommend starting with that one. There will be a link in the description down below, or just go to my channel, or I'll try to attach it to like the little eye icon that pops up in the right-hand corner of your screen. But yeah, I'd recommend checking that one out first. In this video, I will be asking 6 different college admission officers 5 questions. A college admission officer is someone who helps decide whether an applicant should be admitted, rejected, deferred, or waitlisted. The 5 questions I'll be asking are: what is your best advice when it comes to the personal statement? What is your best advice when it comes to supplemental essays? Is it better to earn an A in a regular class or a B in an honors AP or IB class? At your institution, how many admission officers will read my application? And is there any other advice you'd like to share with future applicants? And yeah, without farther ado, here are their responses. Oh, and right before, they briefly introduce themselves with their name, career history, where they work for now, and how long they've been doing it for.
Everyone, my name is Mark Butt. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Selection at Emory University in Atlanta.
My name is Ashley Brookshire. I'm the Regional Director of Admissions for the West Coast for Georgia Tech.
Hi, my name is Maya Scheidel, and I'm an Assistant Director of Admissions at the University of Chicago.
Hi everyone, my name is Emily Carmichael. I currently work for the University of Oregon.
My name is Elena Wong. I'm the West Coast Director of Admission for Drew University.
My name is Laura Stratton, and I'm the Director of Admission at Scripps College.
This is going to be my 8th cycle as an admission officer at Emory. I've done some high school guidance counseling, and then I also worked for 5 years at Johns Hopkins in Baltimore.
This is crazy enough my 13th year in admissions. Before that, I worked for my alma mater, Wheaton College in Norton, Massachusetts. And I have been at Drew for the past 8 years.
I'm a Tech alumna. I graduated back in 2010 and have actually been serving in the admission office since that time. So over my kind of decade of experience with the Institute, definitely very familiar with the competitive admission process, especially with schools that are as kind of STEM focused as we at Georgia Tech are.
I have worked in admissions now for about 10 years. I started at a small private school, which was my alma mater, kind of fell into admissions as most people do. Then from there, I worked for another large public school, and now I've been with the University of Oregon for about 4 years now, and I really love it.
I have worked at Scripps in admission for about 14 years. Prior to that, I worked at a few other small private colleges in admission.
The best piece of advice. I don't know if there's just one piece.
So I was thinking about this when I saw this question, and I was like, oh, okay, so you want to see your world through your eyes. And so my advice is tell a story that allows us to see the world through your eyes.
Rather than starting with the story that you want to tell in your personal essay, think about what you want us as application readers to know about you when we finish it.
Personal statement is called that for a reason. It's meant to be personal. It's meant to be about you.
It's really your time at the point of application to decide what else we should know.
Is it that you are a kind friend, or that you are curious about robotics, or that you went through a harrowing personal experience or health experience that affected who you are?
The other things that we're getting out of the application process you've been working on for a long time. Your transcript is reflective of all of the work you've done 9th through 11th grade and then your senior year planned schedule. Your testing, you've probably taken a couple of times at that point. You're not going to change the SAT or ACT scores that you have when you're filling out the application. Your involvement, again, is reflective of your entire high school career. But the essay from start to finish is you at this point in time telling us what else we need to know.
We're really looking to know who the student is. We want to see another side other than, the quantitative stuff of your GPA and test scores. We want to know more about who the student is. And then we want to see your writing talent. So of course, once again, that proofread, make sure you're looking at it and someone else is. But those are really the 2 big things that we're looking out of it.
Ultimately, you can write about whatever you want in the personal statements, but remember that the story you are sharing should have a point to it. Why are you sharing this? What do you want the colleges to know about you?
Always ask the why. Why is this important to you? And how did this impact you? And why are you sharing this story with me? And if students have a hard time answering that question, maybe that's not something that you should write about.
So coming up with what the takeaway is, and then thinking about how you want to construct the story to illustrate that. That also allows for the personal essay to be a much tighter exercise, meaning that it's not trying to share 14 different experiences. It's really honing in on one with a very clear message that we then leave the personal essay with of like, okay, now I know that one thing about this student, and it's really helpful as I'm getting a more broad picture of who he or she is.
It also doesn't have to be the biggest or most impressive thing, but it should bring up why you are different, what makes you different.
Sometimes students think that in order to stand out with your essay, you need something really big to have happened, right? You've saved 18 million cats from a burning tree in, Southeast Asia, right? Something really big. And some of the best essays that I have read, and congratulations if you have done that, that's very impressive. But some of the best essays that I have read are just small moments in people's lives that they're willing to share with me that I wouldn't get from any other part of the application.
Keep it personal and keep it simple. In addition to a personal statement essay, which might go to all colleges, different institutions might ask for school-specific essays.
My best piece of advice is that if you can find and replace, and you can change out the school name, you have to change it.
Common application and the coalition application, they give us the authority to write our own supplemental questions. So we are asking those questions very intentionally. And so we're really looking to understand the information in those supplements.
That supplemental statement is key to letting us know that you're not just throwing an application out, right? That you've really thought about your fit at Georgia Tech, at the culture that we have on campus, but also how our resources fit who you are and what you're hoping to do and what's going to best support you and your goals and your ambitions.
It's a great opportunity for students to show us that they've done their research and that they're really serious about the school.
It's an opportunity to share something different about you. So we know if you're applying to a lot of different schools, you're probably going to pick out little parts of that are going to be similar. So let's say you're applying to all small liberal arts colleges. You're probably going to talk about it being a small, tight-knit residential community. But the way you talk about the weather might be different if you're looking at a school in New England versus Southern California. So I think it's okay in those supplemental essays to think about what you can reuse. Just be really careful that you make sure that when you're applying to scripts, you don't tell me how much you want to go to Wellesley. And that's a common mistake students can make. And every student thinks, I will never make that mistake. But when it's 11:59 and you're waiting to hit send, it can be easy to do that. So also doing those a little bit ahead of time, making sure that you're proofreading. And again, 1 or 2 extra set of eyes on those can make all the difference, just to make sure that it's really clear what you're trying to share.
If a school asks a question like, why us, right? U Chicago, we ask the question, why U Chicago? This is your chance to show the institution that you really know them and that you are showing that you would be a great member of their community. You're essentially answering the question, why are we on your college list?
I want to see evidence of that assessment, right? I don't want you to feel like you need to drop rankings or faculty names or tell us what we want to hear, because I can read our homepage as well. I know what the first paragraph of Wikipedia says about Georgia Tech. What I want to know is through your research, through the things that you've looked at, and maybe Wikipedia is where you started. That's perfectly fine. But I would imagine it's not just our ranking as a public institute being the driving factor for you submitting your application.
You want to make sure that you've done the research and you know who we are as an institution and you think that you are a good fit. So if you say, I like your location, your class sizes, that doesn't give us really any intel in terms of why you think you're a good fit.
To continue on this topic of other essays for schools, U Chicago is known for our uncommon essay. This is a very open-ended question. Topics like find X or where's Waldo? So this is really a chance for you to share how you think. How do you break down a question that doesn't have a right answer? And you can be creative, you can have fun with it, and you can think outside of the box.
So that's the ultimate admissions question. And the joke is always that it's, of course, the best to get an A in an AP or an IB class, but That's not always the reality.
So the obvious answer is it's better to get an A in the honors or AP or IB course.
My colleagues will, say, well, we want the A in the honors and the IB class.
It would be better to get an A in an AP class or an honors class.
I think at the highly selective schools, most students who are going to be competitive for admission are taking the most challenging curriculum available to them and doing really well. So typically more A's than B's.
The transcript and thinking about that holistic process again, know that it's all taken into consideration within the context of where you go to school. So UChicago is going to see, okay, where does this student go to school? What kinds of courses are available to them, and how are they doing in those classes?
But I think it comes down to the student, right? So like there are certain classes where for a student taking the regular class is a challenge enough. I was not interested in, nor am I interested now in every single academic discipline. And for students to think they have to be in advanced everything, AP, IB, everything, that's a lot of pressure.
I also think that students, as they go into their junior year and in their senior year, they should be thinking about what courses am I most interested in? How can I challenge myself, and how do I want to spend my time?
We cannot expect perfection, but what we do want to look at is if you're applying to a school that has a STEM focus and you're consistently getting low grades in STEM courses that are regular classes, that's probably not great. And so thinking through, okay, how do you be yourself and authentic in your academic journey? And then let us do the work of picking out what's going to work at the schools that we're reading applications for.
When we're looking at our pool, our admit rate usually sits right around 19 or 20%. And so we are looking at students that, again, have challenged themselves when they could step into AP or IB or honors level courses, whatever your school uses to designate that this is a more rigorous option. The students who are most successful in our process are doing that, but then they're also still predominantly A earning individuals. And so for us, we want to see both. We want to see that you've challenged yourself appropriately, but that you also were able to rise to that challenge.
I think there's benefits to both. And so I want to talk a little bit more about both of those. So if you're taking an AP IB class, it offers the possibility of getting college level credit. If you're getting a certain score on the exam, you might get credit for that coming in. And then you also get that experience of taking a college level class, right? And then if you're getting an A grade, that's going to set you up with a higher GPA, which for that's a big factor in merit-based scholarships. So I think you just kind of want to weigh both of those. So do you want that educational experience and the possibility of credit, or is it that you want that 4.0 GPA and the possibility of a higher scholarship? So definitely strong benefits in either direction, and it's just a matter of what is it that you're looking to get out of it.
We want to see that you're challenging yourself, right? And so this is a time to play on your strengths. If you are not great in a math class and you know that, don't take an accelerated math class, right? Because you play on your strengths. If you love calculus and that's your passion, that's what you want to focus on, absolutely take the more challenging class. But if you know that it's going to not be great and you're going to struggle, I encourage you to look closely to see and to work with your college counselors or your guidance office to see if that is going to be the right decision, or if you should maybe take the normal class and then take a more challenging class in another subject.
And students should think critically about that array of courses. And I think that's a really good conversation to have to the guidance counselor, because what's challenging for one student may not be challenging for another student. And so it's a very personalized process for how students sort of progress through that academic ladder.
Ultimately, we want to see that students are challenging themselves, that they're taking rigorous courses, and that they're doing well in these courses. But ultimately, it's going to be up to you to make sure you are taking an appropriate level of coursework that will make the most sense.
At my institution, it will vary.
So it depends.
Applications will go through multiple eyes, and I think that's really helpful to know, because I think one thing that's always helpful is, sometimes you might read an application essay of someone else and have a really strong opinion one way or the other. So it's good to know that multiple people are looking at it.
So we are very lucky at Scripps in that we're a pretty small place. And so almost all applications are read by at least 2 admission officers and then discussed in a variety of different committee settings.
It could be 1, it could be 2, or it could be 3. So we have a training system that we all counselors will go through. And so I am the first reader for all West Coast applications. And so I'm the first reader. And for the majority, because I've been in this field for a while, I'm able to make some decisions. However, if there is an issue or a concern, somebody will read after me. And then if there's a continued issue or concern, somebody will read after them, and then we'll have a conversation about the applicants.
I would say for students who are going to be admitted, there are lots of admission officers who will sort of see that file along the journey. At Emory, it's specifically, it can be 1. You know, if there's a student who submits an application and, you know, I'm reading it and I just don't think it's going to be a competitive application, I can say, you know, my recommendation is a deny on this application. There may be other features about that application where it may get another look, but there also may be features of that application which prevent it from getting another look. So, you know, if the student has like 6 or 12 Fs or something on their transcript, and we're just like, the student has no way of even being competitive in our process, you know, we sort of trust the first reader to say it's going to be denied.
In that first phase, we do have 2 officers reading at the same time, and that happens to every file that comes in our doors. And there are some students that in that initial 2-person read, we see that they are exceptionally competitive. We know that they're going to be a clear admit for our process, and so we can go ahead and make that decision pretty confidently. And then for other students, we know just in the context of that year's pool, they're not as competitive, and so we can pretty confidently know that if we put a deny decision in, that won't change as we go through the process. But that kind of middle ground is the bulk of our pool, and those students go on to a process that we call committee. So that's when another 2-person team is reading that application, again, looking at it in the context of our overall applicant pool and using those evaluative notes that the initial pairing made on the file. So they have the input of those initial 2 readers, but then also we have fresh eyes looking at this file in the bigger context of our overall applicant pool. So I would say the majority of students are going to see that initial read and committee. So that's 4 readers in their file. And then for a lot of students, there's still going to be additional reads after that point.
We think it's important to be aware of and talk openly about our own biases in reading applications. We tend to like students who are like us. I think that's a very normal part of reading applications. And so making sure that in our training and then also in having multiple people read applications in a committee process, that we are sensitive to different people come with different strengths. And that's something that we need to remember. First and foremost, what's right for the institution and for the students applying, and keeping our own egos in check. One piece of advice I would give is to reach out to colleges early and often. We hear from parents a lot, and we really want to hear from students. So if you're stuck on something and you don't know, like, oh, should I be interviewing yet? Or I really want to learn more, I want to talk to a current student. We love to get those emails from prospective students because it allows us then to start that relationship building, which is so important to feel that you can trust us. And so when we do share the news of your admission, that you know that it was a thoughtful process, that you were known and you were respected is really critical. So please do reach out. And there's a different level of response that I think you can expect if a place is receiving 50,000 or 100,000 applications or 5,000 applications. But we do want to be in contact with you and really get to know what your questions are, because every student situation is unique.
I know it's you guys, I know it's stressful, but it's kind of exciting, right? You get to figure out your next 4 years, and you get to figure out what's important to you. And so I know that there's so much talk and there's so much focus on the college's decision, but if you really think about it, students, you guys are the ones who are making 2 of the biggest decisions, right? You are deciding where you're going to go, where you're going to apply, and then you get to decide where you're going to go, right? So don't focus on the college decision, because you are deciding on where you're going to apply and in the end where you get to go for the next 4 years. So be excited about that. Work with your college counselors, work with us, because we want to help you with this process.
Lots of advice, but the one most important, I think, is that this process can definitely be overwhelming. But really try not to stress out. Know that we're all here as admissions officers to help you through the process, as well as your college counselors, and you have a lot of resources along the way, so make sure to use them. We're definitely happy to help. I mean, that's what we're here for, and we're really eager to do that. But I know that in general, we hear a lot of stories about really highly selective schools that are super competitive to get into, and I just want you to know that that's a very, very small number of colleges. You're going to get into a great school. You're going to have a wonderful time. It's going to be a great fit for you. So just know that, you want to make the most of it. So enjoy the time, even though it's a little stressful. Use your resources, and you're going to have the best 4 years of your life.
I think the two pieces of advice I would give students is students should treat the college admission process as a very personal and private thing. I think that even the concept that students are just going to be sharing all this information about where they applied and where they're getting in and where they're not getting in and all those details, I tend to think that that information is like really personal to the student. So I tend to think that students, should at least do themselves a favor and approach this from a standpoint that this is their own personal journey and it belongs to them, and they can share it obviously with their family and their guidance counselor. But I recommend having that very personal journey for students. And the main reason I do that is because while I think there's merit in having conversations with other students, I think it also opens students up to influence that may not be something that they have the capacity to resist. So they may think that school A is really not that great, but everyone else thinks it's super shiny, and so they may feel compelled to now apply there, and that may not be a good fit for them. And so I think that's probably the first thing, is to keep it, personal. I think the second thing that I would recommend for students is, to involve their parents in the conversation, or their guardians, as well as their counselors, because those are really the core support network that students have as they make their decisions. And if anyone, those are the people that they should solicit advice from. And so, because that's typically who's going to know the student the best. And so I think that they probably have the vested interest of the student in going through that process.
So the college process is a great opportunity to learn about yourself. You are gathering all of your accomplishments over the last few years. You're reflecting on those things that you're proud of and talking about those highlights to colleges as you're submitting the applications. So it's really important to be positive. I know the process may not seem very fun when you know you have to write a ton of essays or gather all of those things, but it really is a cool experience, and you are shaping the next step in your life. You can do this. We are here to support you as admissions counselors. We know that it can get stressful. We know that there are a lot of pieces that go into it, and we are here to help you. So I know at UChicago, we're more than happy to answer any questions that prospective students have, and I'm sure my colleagues at other institutions feel the same way. And last but not least, use the resources you have, whether that's a teacher, a counselor, a mentor. And like I said, do not be afraid to reach out if you have any other questions.
I feel like a lot of this process, we really focus on what's happening once you submit your application, right? So many times when I'm doing information sessions or I'm sitting in on panels, that's where the bulk of the questions come from. It's who the admission offices choose to admit. But this process is a lot bigger than that. And actually the student has control at the front and back end of it. And so when you're initially looking at shaping that list of colleges you want to apply to, I cannot make you apply to Georgia Tech. I can serve as a resource and I can give you information about Georgia Tech, but ultimately you get to decide if this is a place that you want to apply, or if maybe you would rather kind of look at other options. So that initial phase is completely at the discretion of the student. And then once you've applied to schools, and hopefully you have a great mix of schools with different levels of competition, most students find that they have options coming out of that process. They're going to have more than one admission offer. And then the ball's back in your court, and you get to look through those offers and still make that decision of what place is going to be the best fit for you amongst the offers that you have in front of you. So while I think naturally a lot of kind of our time and energy is focused on asking the questions of what's happening with the application in that admission office, over the course of this process, students have a ton of control at the front and back end of it. And so maybe just hold on to that and remember that it is kind of a full process. It's not just that kind of one glimpse in time when the admission office is trying to make decisions that make the most sense for their institute. And those certainly are not decisions that are really speak anything to your character or potential as an individual. It just depends on the needs of the college and who else is in the applicant pool that year.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this video to be helpful. In creating this video, I had to email roughly a dozen admission officers to get 6 who were willing and able. The other 6 emailed me back still, but they told me that their institutions were not comfortable with them being on a recorded video that would be posted on YouTube, which is totally fair and understandable. But I still had the pleasure of speaking with a few of those people, and one piece of advice they wanted me to share is that when doing school-specific research, a great source is the actual school's website, not just the admissions website. And you'll see what I mean if you try looking up any institution. They'll have like this admission website and then this school, like the actual school website, and to go to the school one. And on top of that, there's also like this whole other section of whether it be like a specific program within a school or anything. So yeah, just be sure that you're not just looking on the admissions website. There's a lot more out there. Anyhow, this video likely won't answer all of the college application questions you have. I am still in contact with these 6 admission officers. At the end of the interviews, I asked them all if they would be interested in doing a follow-up to this video, answering more questions you all have, and they said they would love to be a part of it. So if you have any more questions, let me know in the comments down below and I will make a part 2. Lastly, I just wanted to say thank you so much to everyone who was involved. There were 3 faculty members at my school: Melissa Palmer, Stephanie Perez, and Fu Tranchi. Those 3 individuals helped me out a lot with this project, from helping with putting me in contact with these college admission officers and figuring out what questions to ask them and how to go about emailing them. Obviously, this video would not have been possible without Elena, Mark, Ashley, Laura, Emily, and Maya. And a big thank you to them for taking time out of their day to meet with me and answer these questions so that I could create this video. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. Again, let me know in the comments down below if you have any more questions you want me to ask. And yeah, that's about all there is. Thank you again for watching and stay safe.